Yo, my name is Josh Ryder and I'm going to show you how I drew myself. We're going to be using these Arrtx sketch markers for the whole drawing. I have an 80 color set, a skin tone set, and also a grayscale set. I love all of these colors and I use them for all of this drawing. So yeah, they have a chisel tip and a bullet tip, which is useful for any part of the drawing. I was skeptical at first if it was going to be able to do realistic portraits with chisel tip markers. A lot of people use brush tips and that's perfectly fine, but this is all I have. And it worked out really well. They blended together a lot better than I thought they would. And you could see that with my initial layout of the drawing. I have the first layer going down and I just chose a color that I thought suited my skin tone. And then I go through and layer that with just slightly darker colors of the same tone, just building up that, trying to protect my highlights along the way. And I'm looking at the reference the entire time just to try to discern where those values are, building those up layer by layer, light to dark. And at first it looks really weird. I end up looking kind of like a zombie at first. When I start adding the dark, it gets a little weird, but I needed to add some sort of dark value to the drawing in order for me to kind of decide where the lights and where the darks are. Adding the darkest darks and the lightest lights to be able to build value to match the value that I see in the reference. Going in with a lighter tone here for the beard, and you'll see that it does blend really well. And again, I was really surprised by that. There's really no issue at all doing that with these markers. But as I lay in these tones, I'm just looking for how these colors fade into one another and just working them back and forth with the darkness and the lightness, the two colors, mesh them together, working back and forth. Adding some of the colors to my hair. And I went with a lighter color. Obviously my beard is a little bit darker and this picture is a little bit older, so I don't have quite as much gray. So I promise I'm not leaving that out on purpose. This is where it got super tricky for me because I wanted to add the shadow for the eye. It was just a tricky spot to do because of the tone. I was just trying to match it and I chose gray, which just didn't work. And I started to panic a little bit and just use those other colors to kind of fade them in and out. It was pretty frustrating pretty much for the entire drawing, that one section. So I kept backing out, doing something else, getting back into it, and that's perfectly fine, you know, with these kind of drawings, especially marker, because you are layering and layering and layering. You want to give yourself some breath to let those colors dry, come back to it, and every time I did that, I made better decisions. So just let yourself take a break. When I'm blending these colors, they tend to get muddy after a while, but that's part of the process. And that's what's great about these markers is they function a lot like watercolor in the sense that you can push and pull some of these colors. You still got to be very careful to protect your highlights because, you know, if you don't, then it will be obvious. But whenever I'm going through this drawing, it really doesn't start to get clear until I add in those darker darks and bring in those lights with the colorless blender and then also the pencil color later. tried to tackle the eye again. Again, I backed out of it, started working on other parts of the face. It just got really tricky, but I started working on the beard and was nervous at first just because it is such a stark contrast between the skin and my beard. And I don't have a full beard, and so to blend that back into the face was tricky. It turned out to be my favorite thing. And there toward the end, it sells the realism of your drawing. You just gotta be patient, and with the dot work, that's what I was just trying to do. Just trying to be patient, let the process flow, and trust it, trust that process. I learned to draw whenever I was a kid just by doing, and I always had a good understanding of it, but just like anybody else, I was drawing iconically, like with symbols instead of actually drawing what I see. And it wasn't until I got a book called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain, and it taught me to differentiate between what is there and what my brain wants to simplify. Excellent book, and I think they teach it in a lot of just like high school art class, but I never did that. You know, I was self-taught literally for a lot of what I do, and watching YouTube, practicing, looking at people that I enjoy and admire, and just following their example. I was pretty satisfied with how these shapes and everything were looking, how the blends were working. So I moved on to the rest of the hat, the rest of the environment. Filling in this area is so satisfying. And here I actually made a big mistake. I colored over my face. Yeah, not proud of that. So many tiles. I think at one point I actually fell asleep and had to work on it the next day. But hallelujah, it's finished. Have worked on other pieces or other parts of the drawing, I can see how the values differ between my face and also the background, and so I can see more of what I need to do or what I need to fill in. Filled in the shirt, filled in the hat, and now it's time to really dial in the details of the drawing, especially around highly detailed areas like the ear, the eye, the nose, and the lips in particular. And so it's actually one of my favorite parts, because at this point the drawing's really coming along and it's not just looking muddy. This is where it's real special. And I start using the colorless blender as well. And what that does is it actually functions like a bleach pen. I found that out from another video on YouTube, and it was one of my favorite discoveries, because using it as a bleach pen as opposed to trying to use it to blend colors together, it's just not what it's meant for. I mean, at least that's not what I use it for. And once I discovered that you can add highlights or draw stuff out similar to how watercolor works, it completely changed drawing with markers for me. And as far as like why I decided to draw self-portrait, I drew one a while ago whenever I first started that drawing on the right side of the brain book. But one of the exercises at the end of it was to finish with a self-portrait of yourself. This was years ago, so I honestly don't know where that first drawing of my self-portrait is. But I felt like it was a great introduction into who I am as an artist, what I like to work on. And honestly, I'm just a dude, just a dad. I have 2 kids, beautiful wife, and I really enjoy what I do here. Finding time to draw and make YouTube videos, which I really want to create a practice with and use this channel as a way to create better habits for myself, especially in terms of art, is something that really excites me. Finding that balance, it's a challenge, you know, just like these drawings are a real challenge, but I'm so excited to share that with y'all. Here I finally started liking where my eye was going. It took forever to finally work on it and be satisfied with it. And even then, you're gonna make mistakes. I made mistakes throughout this whole drawing, but it's one of those things. Trust the process. When I start using the pencil colors, that's where it sells the realism for me. You can start drawing in the flyaway hairs, adding in the details with the highlights, and also adding some more shading. I try not to go too heavy here just because the texture gets kind of weird between the markers are super smooth texture, and then of course pencil colors have their own kind of sketchy texture. And it's good, it's great if that's what you want. But for this, I really want to try to keep my drawing smooth. And that's exactly why I don't use it too heavy. But without the pencil colors, I don't think you can take it to its fullest potential in terms of making it realistic looking. And going in and adding those realistic textures to the lips and the ears and the eyes in particular, it just brings it home. Makes it so much more enjoyable. My favorite part though is using this white pencil color, because you can add those soft highlights and really define the edges as well. And so that's what makes it pretty special, is you can have these soft blends from, you know, the lights to the darks, but you can also have these harsh lines that the pencil colors are just amazing at creating. So with markers, it just doesn't do quite the same thing. And now I'm finished with the actual portrait. I go through and add my tag every day and that's something that's really close to me. It's a philosophy I have, just living life every day, be who you are every day, and things that you practice and perform and do every day, that's who you are. So I could go on and on about it, honestly, but. So here's the final drawing. I'm very satisfied with how it turned out. The tones are kind of different, but I like it. I think it's cool. I think the amount of realism I was able to capture with mostly markers and just a little bit of pencil color and a little bit of white marker took it home for me. So I'm super inspired to work on more of these kinds of drawings. And so if you're interested, feel free to subscribe and leave a like or comment down below. I'm definitely interested to hear what any of y'all have to say. You can find me on Instagram at _Joshua Ryder. I appreciate y'all hanging out. I'll be seeing you.